Hi, my name is Dr. Yonit Arthur, and I'm an audiologist, strength coach, and personal trainer. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel, The Steady Coach, where we discuss all things related to vertigo, dizziness, balance problems, fitness, and wellness. Today we're going to be talking about a form of chronic dizziness, that's long-lasting dizziness and vertigo, that's called PPPD. PPPD is one of the most common causes of chronic dizziness, and it's usually preceded by an attack of vertigo or dizziness or some kind of trauma that causes vertigo or dizziness. In these cases, most patients get better. The patients who don't and continue to have symptoms of vertigo, dizziness, trouble looking at things that are moving, those patients go on to often be diagnosed with PPPD or persistent perceptual postural dizziness. In many cases, these patients are told that these symptoms are all in their head and they just need to get over it because there are no abnormalities or medical conditions that can explain their situation. And I'm here to tell you that it is a very real condition, and more importantly, it is something that you can heal from. So why are you still having symptoms? If everything is okay, if you are medically fine and you've done your therapy and you've taken your medications, why are you still having dizziness and vertigo symptoms? The answer lies within our central nervous system. So our central nervous system is our brain and our spinal cord, and their jobs are to take information that we get from our senses and put them together so we understand and can make sense of what's going on around us. That's their first job. Their second job is to tell the rest of the body what the heck is going on and to give it an idea of how it should respond, okay? So what happens when you have an actual dizziness or vertigo attack early on, when you have an acute medical problem that causes dizziness or vertigo? In that situation, your brain knows something terrible has gone wrong, and what it does is it activates your fight or flight response, and that's something you're probably familiar with. Back in the old days when we were living in caves, we had to make sure that if a saber-toothed tiger came along, that probably doesn't line up with the timeline, but if something came along that could eat us, that we responded quickly and appropriately so we could get out of there and make sure we didn't get eaten. So fight or flight. You've probably experienced that feeling yourself. It's that feeling of anxiety and wanting to move. That's that fight or flight response. That happens when you have an acute medical issue that leads to a dizziness or vertigo attack. Now, at that point, your body releases all these chemicals throughout your whole body to tell everyone, every little cell in your body, hey, we're on high alert, something bad, something scary has happened. At that point, your brain uses all the information around you to try to make sense of what's going on, okay? So in your first acute vertigo or dizziness attack, you had the fight or flight response. Your brain said, oh my gosh, something doesn't make sense here, sound all the alarms, and very frequently people end up in this very, very heightened state of alertness for a long period of time, even after the dizziness passes. Say, for example, in cases like BPPV, or benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, which is a short-lasting type of vertigo, people will still feel very off, very fatigued, even long after the vertigo subsides. So even after the acute dizziness or vertigo or danger, whatever that is, has passed, your body is still in the state of heightened alertness, and your brain says, we gotta make sure that doesn't happen again. So it starts tuning the volume dials on your various senses. It starts saying, wait, okay, let's listen really carefully if you heard a sound that happened before you had your dizziness or vertigo attack. You might be extra sensitive to sound. You might be extra sensitive to a particular type of smell. Your brain is trying to remember these things so that you don't have this happen again. And for some of us, again, the attack starts in our inner ears. So your brain turns the volume dial up on the inner ears and on the other senses that are related to our movement, which primarily includes our vision, all right? And this is why so many of us, after we have an acute vertigo attack, notice that things can sometimes be triggered by visual stimuli or vision-related things that we see, such as driving in a car with the trees going by, such as things that are moving in front of us that we have to follow with our eyes. will have vertigo symptoms that are triggered by our eyes because our brain has turned up the volume dial on the eyes to make sure that terrible, awful dizziness and vertigo attack doesn't happen again. So just like how you would train a muscle to make it stronger, as your brain gets used to this process of keeping the volume dials turned up, keeping yourself in that fight or flight state to make sure that nothing happens again, just like when you train a muscle, it gets stronger, your body doing that over and over, being in the fight or flight state, being in that hyper-tuned, extra sensitive state, that is trainable as well. The more you do it, the more your brain is going to do it. The more sensitive you're going to be to everything around you, to the inputs from the various senses that were involved in the initial attack, and possibly to other senses that your body or your brain have decided are really important to keeping you safe. So all this is coming from a place of your brain trying to keep you safe, but it ends up keeping you in a hyper alert and very unsafe state all the time. So the first step to making sure that your brain starts to let go of all this, let go of that fight or flight response, and stops turning up the volume dial on all the different senses that were involved in the initial attack, is to get your body out of the fight or flight response. Now, your providers or doctors may have told you that breathing techniques, meditation, relaxation can be really helpful for PPPD, but you may not understand why. So it's not because you're crazy and you just need to relax more. It's not just, oh, you're just anxious and that's what's causing this. No, you have a very real nervous system issue that we need to address by bringing some of those stress chemicals back down. Relaxation, breathing, yoga, all those things are very helpful specifically for that purpose. But I want you to understand that you're doing them not because you're crazy, but because there's a physical, chemical cascade going on in your nervous system that you can take control of if you use some of these techniques. So let's talk about some of the exercises I have my patients do when they come into me with triple PD. The very first thing that I have these patients do, because every single one is in that fight or flight state, is do something I call parasympathetic breathing. Super fancy name. It's basically deep diaphragmatic breathing in a specific method that I'm going to show you. Doing that, again, what we're trying to do is stop that brain chemical dump into your body that's causing you to go into that fight or flight state. We have to stop that. We have to cut that off before we can be successful with any exercises. You can do all these wonderful vestibular exercises until the cows come home. If you are still in that fight or flight response, your brain's going to say, yeah, that's nice. Turn the volume dial back up. Dizziness is coming again. Okay, so the very first step is this diaphragmatic breathing. So with the breathing, I'd like you to get into a comfortable position. Most of my patients like to lie down on the floor with their feet up on something comfortable. If lying down provokes your symptoms, then you're welcome to sit, stand, sit in a recliner, wherever you want to be. I want you to be comfortable. We're not trying to provoke your symptoms here. We're just trying to get you into a relaxed state, again, to bring those chemical levels down. At that point, I want you to put your hands on your sides like this. So your thumb is going to be against your back and your fingers are going to be against your rib cage. From here, I want you to breathe into your entire hands. And if you happen to have someone nearby who can watch you or have a mirror nearby, that's even better. So deep breath in and deep breath out. Now, what I want you to notice is a few things. Most people, when they breathe, they do this. Their shoulders come up. Okay? So I want you to take another deep breath and I want you to watch to see what your shoulders do. Do your shoulders rise? If they do, I want you to really consciously think about relaxing them down. The second thing that I see is that people will breathe really hard into one part of their hand, but not the other. And that's why I call this 360-degree breathing rather than just belly breathing. Belly breathing is out here. I don't want your belly moving out. I want your belly moving out, your ribs moving out to the sides, and then your back expanding your thumbs. So let's try one more time. I want you to breathe in, into your hands, feeling your torso pushing out against your fingers, into the crevice between your first finger and your thumb, and into your thumb, making sure your shoulders aren't rising up. So deep breath in, and deep breath out. Okay, now from here, what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in on a 4 count, 4 slow count in, and then 6 slow count out. That may be a little too slow if you're not used to breathing this way. You're gonna work up to that. You're working up to a 4 count in, 1 Mississippi, right? 2 Mississippi, 4 count in, 6 slow count out. If you can breathe through your nose, that is better than breathing through your mouth. But if you can't breathe through your nose, use your mouth if you have to, okay? Once you have done that for at least 20 breaths, that's a long time. That's gonna take you a few minutes. I want you to stop and evaluate how you feel. If you feel like you're still hyper alert and hypersensitive, then great, you're done for the day. You can come back and do it again in another couple hours or revisit it again tomorrow. If you feel like you're no longer in that same anxious or stressed out or dizzy state that you started in, at that point, I'd like you to try a few more exercises. Okay, so for our exercises today, you're going to need 2 regular playing cards. This first exercise is called tracking. And what I want you to aim for with the tracking exercise is feeling some symptoms, but only up to maybe a 3 or 4 on your symptom scale up to 10. So you might feel a little hint of dizziness or nothing at all, which is fine too, but I don't want you to feel more than that, not to the point of feeling ill or feeling like the room is spinning around. You can provoke some symptoms up to a 3 or 4, no more than that, okay? So the way to do this and keep the level low when you first start is to move your hand slowly. And then if you want to speed it up and make it harder, that's going to help bring on more symptoms, okay? So you're going to stare at your card directly in front of you, and you're gonna slowly move it side to side, watching it with your eyes. You're not gonna move your head or your neck, you're just moving the card side to side. And what you're gonna do is move it fast enough, all right, speed it up if you can, just till you feel, again, about a 3 or 4 on that dizziness symptom scale, okay? You're gonna do this 20 times in each direction, 20 times in each direction. Once you're done, you're gonna stop, you're gonna put your fingers and your hands back on your waist, and you're going to take 5 grounding breaths. If you feel dizzy at this point and like you can't continue, congratulations, you're done. Come back again later, start with your breathing, and then go back into the exercises. If you feel like you can continue, we're gonna do the same thing, except moving the card up and down. So cards up, face stays pointing forward, eyes are following the card goes down. Up and down. And again, you're looking for no more than a 3 to 4 on your symptoms. You're gonna just speed it up as you can without making yourself feel more than a 4 on that dizziness scale. Okay, you're gonna again do 20 in each direction. The last variation of this is on the diagonal. So you're gonna take 5 more breaths here, 5 more breaths. And then from here, you're gonna take the cards on a diagonal. Again, moving them at the speed that works for you. You're following the card with just your eyes, not letting your head and neck move. You're gonna do 10 on one diagonal and 10 on the other diagonal. At the end of those exercises, take a moment, ground 3 to 5 breaths, and we can move on to the second exercise of the day. The second exercise is going to be something we call saccades, which is looking quickly from one target to another. So I have 2 playing cards now. I'm gonna hold them out in front of me, and I'm gonna quickly look back and forth between the cards. Looking back and forth. And again, to make this easier, you slow it down a little bit. To make it harder, you speed it up. Cards stay still, head stays still, you're just looking back and forth between the cards. You're doing this 20 times in each direction. After that, stop and ground 3 to 5 breaths. We're gonna go vertical. Same thing, looking from card to card, not moving head or neck, looking up, down, up, down, up, down. And you're gonna go as fast as you can while keeping your symptoms to no more than a 4. All right, stop and ground, 3 to 5 breaths, then saccades again, 1, 2, 1, 2, keeping your head and neck straight. You're doing them on a diagonal. Then you're going to switch to the opposite diagonal, 10 in each directions on both diagonals. At the very end, when you're all through with all of those, so tracking side to side with one card, up and down, diagonal and diagonal, then saccades side to side, saccades up and down, diagonal, diagonal. You are finished with your exercises for the day. Take one final set of grounding breaths, 3 to 5 breaths, and go on about your day. I recommend doing these 2 to 3 times a day if you can. But the key here is, while you're first getting started, again, what is our main objective? Our main objective is fight or flight response. Bring the fight or flight response down enough that we can start to retrain the brain to appropriately listen to the input it's getting from our eyes and from our ears, okay? If you're in that hyper alert state, if the breathing doesn't calm you, if you still feel really stressed out, then no worries. You did your breathing, you're still accomplishing something. Whether your body wants to or not, it's still gonna bring those levels of chemicals down, and you're gonna be more successful the next time you try. So go about your business, come back and try it again later, and when you feel like you are at no more than a 3 or 4 with your symptoms, that's when you can start doing your eye exercises. You might start very slow, you might only be able to get through a few repetitions, and that's fine. Every repetition counts. Think about it this way. If you came to me as a personal training client and you said, I want stronger biceps, I would say, okay, let's do some bicep curls. So for this whole time, your brain has been doing repetition upon repetition of fight or flight, and dizziness, fight or flight and dizziness. So every moment that you're not in that fight or flight state, every moment that you're teaching your brain to pay attention to your eyes in an expected way, in the way that it should, is one step away from your symptoms. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please drop them below and I will either answer you or maybe even make a future video on the topic you suggest. Please subscribe, please share, and again, thank you for tuning in.